I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
Hey y'all, welcome to my channel and another chapter of Adventure of the Bus. Chapter 9, she got an upgrade. Well, she did get an upgrade, but she didn't get the upgrade I was hoping for. I was working toward getting the doors done. I did not finish that. Actually, today I've been out here. I'm in the future right now. And today I've been working on getting her emptied out so I can go get some more wood. And also getting her ready so that I can drive her. So I put in a temporary door. So she's got a temporary door here. It's just enough to keep the honest people out. And then I put the dog pound back in and put the seat back in so that she's drivable. So that's what I've been working on today. Let's just say all our plans don't go as we expect them. And we can't get a job done without the right tools. And part of the reason the doors aren't finished is because I don't have the right tools to get the job done. And I'm hoping to get some tools soon or get access to the tools I need so I can finish the job. I do have it kind of pre-fitted and it looks pretty good and I'm hopeful, but I didn't have everything I needed to finish the job. And I did find the right tools for the seat to get that in and out, and I was able to do that. And then I worked on some other stuff, which you will see in this episode. So enjoy the journey. Thanks for coming. Okay, so what you see me doing here is I'm actually beginning the process of cutting the boards for the door. And the wood I have here for this particular project is actually white oak. And I was also working on the door frame and measuring out what it exactly I needed to have done. And the white oak wood that I had for this particular project is from the property. There was a tree that fell on the property when I first moved in the property, and I was able to harvest some of the wood from this particular tree, and so I had the opportunity to use this white oak in this project, and I wanted to use it as a nod to the project and also to give it the opportunity to use some of this beautiful wood. It's very hard wood, so it's hard to work with because it doesn't sand down quickly and easily. So I was really in need of a planer, and what you see me doing here is I'm taking the smaller boards. I think right now I'm trying to measure for tongue and groove, and I have like a sample piece that I was using to get that done. And then I will actually go into planing the boards, the small boards that are the cross-member boards. So I'm measuring everything to make sure it's set right, and then I'm going to actually start planing those boards. And I set the saw at a high level so that it can get the entire width of the board and clean off the rough edges. This is all rough cut lumber that was harvested from the tree on the property. And so it has really rough saw marks on it. So I was trying to clean them up a little bit and get them all planed to the same size. I can do this with the saw and with the smaller pieces, but when I got the bigger pieces, the wide pieces that are going to be for the actual panel part of the door, it's very difficult to do that with it, and it's really unsafe to do it with the table saw, especially with this hardwood, because I can't raise the saw blade up high enough to plane down those pieces. And that's what you see me cutting there, some of the bigger pieces. And I did plane some of them, but it was really dangerous, and I don't want to do that. Here you see me cutting the actual tongue for the tongue and grooves. So I'm doing the ends of the boards to get them ready for the tongue and groove part. And yeah, you have to try and get it all the same dimension, and unfortunately, because of the nature of this project, I needed to cut them down to the right size, and I was working hard at trying to get them all the right size and accurate measurements and pieces for it. And I'm actually cleaning up the edges now, cleaning up the tongue and groove parts to make sure that there's no excess wood there so that they'll fit nicely. And I'm doing it on all the pieces that are going to be the cross members. And then you'll see me move over to the bigger pieces that are the side pieces, which are going to have the groove part in it. So these have the tongue and the other part has the groove. And it's really beautiful wood. It has really nice wood grain on it, and I wanted to use this wood because
I thought it would make it special for this project. So that's what I'm doing. And I wanted to have it done before this episode actually had to air, and unfortunately that did not happen because I don't have a planer. So what you see me doing here is running the long boards through the router to cut the groove part, and I'm running them through one side, and then I flip it over and run it through the other side. And I'm also using the board to hold it down tight so it doesn't mess up the actual cut, because if it moves away then it'll mess up the cut. And this is very difficult to do by yourself, and my cuts weren't exactly perfect, so I had to run them through a couple times to get them cleaned up exactly the way I wanted them to. And they're still not what I would call a perfect cut, but they're going to look pretty when they're put together. And I don't think everybody's going to get out the guts and look at the guts and make sure every little bit is exact and precise. There are people that would do that, but it's not something, when I'm working on a project this big, that I'm going to worry about every little minute detail. I don't think it's necessary to be perfect. I feel I work toward excellence, and I'm going to try my best to make this door fit together good and make it look cool and amazing. I'm working with hand tools and small tools, and I don't have an actual wood shop to make every cut precise and accurate. So I'm going to do the best I can with what I have. So here you see me switching because I didn't have a planer to get all the wood exact to the exact dimensions I needed, and I'm working with a very difficult piece. This is the piece I took out, and you can see most of it is rotted away. So I had to really do a lot of measuring and be very accurate on my measurements to make sure that I got this piece in perfect. It didn't get perfect, but it did take a few tweaks to get it down to this, and you'll see that later on. But I also had, I think you'll notice when I'm measuring here that there's some areas of disarray in my job site, and that's usually because I'm one person doing everything. I'm filming, I'm measuring, I'm cutting, I'm moving tools, I'm making wood accessible. This wood was actually on, I got it a couple weeks ago, so I actually had it on a couple sawhorses, and there was a lot of things on top of it, so those things had to move so that I could cut the wood, and there's a lot of moving around in the background that you guys don't see. Because I don't feel it's necessary to put every single time I clean up or move things around on camera, because that would be just make for boring content and video. This isn't super exciting, but I wanted you guys to see how many times I had to measure and cut, to try and get these measurements down exactly. And I was working with a board that was not very perfect, and I had to measure and get my angles exact and correct. I think you'll notice that I have a bandage on my left hand there. That was from when I was pulling down the boards for the actual door itself. And when I was doing that, the router table was up on a shelf and it fell down and hit my hand. I had a pretty good gash, and why I put that bandage on was to protect my hand and keep it clean from further injury and or infection, and keep the dirt out of it. It's very important for you to try and be as safe as possible whenever you're working on a project like this, but accidents do happen, and you just got to take care of yourself when they do. So I'm going to work on finishing up this board and measuring it, and then you'll see me switch over in a little bit to actually cutting the boards. I'm going to do one last check on the measurements to make sure everything's just exact and precise, and then I will move on to the actual cutting process, which you will see in a couple minutes here. I have been trying to do some different camera angles, and as you can see, they're not working out the best as I had hoped. So I will be probably sticking to the format where I am going to be mostly doing quick motion camera angles, and I'm also working on getting the correct and right speed for them, and they work the best, and I'm trying to find what works best on everything. Also, some people had made comments about my filming, as whether it's in landscape or portrait mode. I am switching to doing everything in landscape mode, and then I can just size them down for Instagram and whatever social media I need to. So I'm going to just go to the long format on everything. And so that's going to take me a couple of weeks because I'm a couple of weeks ahead on the filming. So I have to use up all the footage I do have. But as you noticed in the beginning of this video and in the end of this video, I have clips that are the long ways. So it's going to switch over to cutting here in a second. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the cab, and then I'll cut the boards.
Well, it's end of another day. I'm dirty again, but I have made some good progress. I have the front seat torn out, and I have all the front area of the dash torn out, and I've begun to start wire brushing all the mess in here so that I can start treating it for rust. It's going to get real serious cleanup in the front end of this bus, and then I've already started tracing out the pattern for this right here to cut out this piece of plywood and replace that. So that's soon to be coming out. I also want to finish taking out the air conditioning lines, which go up to over there. Those two, the red lines over there are air conditioning lines. I'm going to see if I can get the rest of those hoses out soon, and that's where I'm at.
Okay, so I'm actually reusing one of the floor rails that I took out of the bus because it's a hard metal and it's a very straight line, and so I could not run this plywood through the table saw because it's too much to handle by myself. So I set up my own rail saw, and in setting up that rail saw, I was able to cut this by myself. Yes, when I get close to the end, I had to hold the board so that it didn't, because there was a lot of weight on that rail, and that was probably not the safest way to do it, but I tried my best to be safe and careful about how I was cutting the board, and I did hold it near the end so it didn't just break off. And that was the first cut, and you'll see me go into the second and third and fourth cut, and there was many cuts that I had to make. It was a very unique piece of wood because it had some special angles in it, but I was able to get it done pretty quickly because this is me actually doing the cutting for this board. And it was not too difficult, but it went quickly. In the previous clip, I think you noticed that there was a couple of red wires right where the seat for the bus was, and in that was they were actually hooked to a switch that was on the bottom of the driver's seat, and I didn't even know that switch was there. And that just, it reminds me of how important it is to be connected to the proper power. And if you're not connected to the proper power, things just don't work. And so I realized that that particular power line went up to that box where all the wiring was, which was, this is basically the switch that turns on all the power for the cab. And that was actually hooked to a battery that was in the cab that the battery wasn't even hooked up. So a lot of the things that weren't working in the cab portion of the bus was because this, one, the switch wasn't turned on, and two, it wasn't properly connected to the battery. I'm not going to worry about whether or not I took out too many wires. At this point, I'm going to pretty much scrap most of the wiring that isn't like tail lights and marker lights, because I need to just start over fresh, and I'm going to rewire things, and we'll put new batteries in. I'm hoping to put in some solar power. We'll see what happens in the future. I'm just right now trying to get the basics done, so it's going along pretty good, and I was really happy with the cuts on this, and you'll see how they fit in just a few seconds. I'm going to switch over and tell you about that.
It's just a scotch long, so we got to figure out the length here. This length is too long, so we're going to just go measure it one more time and chop off that little piece on the top. And this is the right length here, so this part will fit. I just got to take a little off the top, and it looks like it'll flop right in. So okay, after about 37, 38 measurements, maybe 40, I got it. I only had to do 2 small tweaks on this one angular part right over here. 2 small tweaks, and I got it nailed. This thing is spot on. I am so happy. I'm so happy. I probably should have brought it down on this side just a little bit, but I can just put a little strip of wood in there, or I can cut a notch out of the next board. I think I'll just notch out the next board. But dang it, I got my first piece down. This is so cool. Hey y'all, I just wanted to thank you for coming and taking time to watch this video all the way through. And thank you for joining me on the adventure with Adventura. Take time, if you can, to subscribe and share. And remember to like this video. And thank you for taking the time to join me on my journey. Blessings, and y'all come back now. Thank you all for taking time to stop by. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Y'all come back now.
Some things are not